GM, everybody, welcome. We're live from the Flow Hacker House at ETH Denver 2024. Really excited to be here. We are on where we run a media entity called TGID. It stands for Thank God It's Doodles. Without further ado, I'd like to go to my buddy French Loaf over here, the Goat Loaf. What's your favorite color and what's a hobby that you like?
Favorite color is green, which I share with my oldest son. And hobby I have is Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons.
Collect. He's a TCG guy. Okay. All right.
Austin, shoot it.
Yeah, favorite color is blue, always has been, and I love scuba dive, so it works out actually pretty well. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Chef Tony. My government name is Anthony. My favorite color is green, and I love to cook.
Thanks, Tony.
Wasn't that interesting, though? Sorry.
Yeah, my name's Matt. I go by Doodlifts. You know, I feel like I didn't expect so many green lovers here, you know. Y'all see my doodle. It's green through and through. And let's see, hobby, I lift. You know, that should be spot on.
Unexpected.
Yes, I know. It is
no idea.
It is on brand.
And now you guys might be asking, what do we gather you here for? We're at the Flow Hacker House. We're at ETH Denver. Do those things match? Maybe they didn't before, but they are just about to with the EVM dropping on Flow. We've got a lot of really cool, fun stuff that the team is out here doing, networking, setting up partnerships and stuff. And we've brought in, folks from Doodles that are building the studio, which I think is going to be one of the killer apps that is going to, really bring Flow on. I mean, Flow brought in, a big market with NBA Top Shot. And now I think that the Doodles team is really kind of setting the bar to be able to cook that with the market working the way that it is. And Austin is, architected what is now known as account linking, which has, brought hybrid custody into the Flow ecosystem. I think I'd like to start there. Austin, can you tell us a little bit about what account linking is?
Well, maybe let's back it up a little bit. Okay. I feel like we need to back it up a little bit. So to kind of give you an overarching, if you're sitting here at ETH Denver and you're like, what the hell am I doing at the Flow Hacker House? Like, what's going on? Like Tony was saying, there's going to be EVM equivalents on Flow coming up soon. But I think as far as the conversation goes tonight, what you can expect to hear, we're going to talk about what is Flow. For, if you don't know, not everybody does. And that's totally okay. So we're going to talk about what is Flow, what is a little bit of history of that. What is it? How does it play into these EVM equivalents coming onto Flow? And then Doodles. Why does it matter to Doodles now, and where's it going in the future? So I do feel like we kind of need to do the little podcast trope a little bit about how'd you get into Web3, Okay. But I'm genuinely interested.
Speed dating.
Yeah, so the Web3 version. How'd you get into Web3? When'd you buy your first NFT? So let's go to French Loaf first. So how did you get into Web3?
Yeah, I got, I was very interested in Bitcoin back in 2013. Really into the general ethos behind it, and then I went away from it. I bought crypto here and there, and then I didn't start working in crypto until actually fairly recently. I built out an exchange on Flow, so that was my first introduction to really building on chain. I had deployed little contracts and stuff on ETH, and it done the generic I'm interested in this stuff from a building perspective, but it wasn't until I worked on building out that exchange, integrating with Dapper Wallet and stuff, where it was I felt really truly part of Web3. It was just always from the outside looking in and dipping my toe in here and there.
Yeah. Would you say that experience you're still working in Web3, so do you have a relatively good, did you kind of fall down the rabbit hole a little bit?
I think I learned a lot about the capabilities of just what was possible, right? And especially with the majority of my coding experience, starting on the Flow side, it was a lot more engaging than just calling a contract. It was a lot more expressive and creative and just generally interesting, right? But not saying that building on EVM is boring, and it's incredibly powerful, but it was I view coding as a creative medium, not a let me just write my stuff. And it was really a place where I felt like I could express and explore some of that creativity instead of just like, let me do my like wrapped function calls to like do this thing on the contract that does one thing, you know?
That's really cool to hear you say that you view it as kind of this creative medium and that it's not this kind of, like you said, kind of cut and dry, call your functions kind of thing. That's really cool. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Austin, how about you? How'd you get into Web3?
You know, I hear so many people say like 2013, 2014. I'm 2017.
So early.
I'm 2017. I remember distinctly I was playing PUBG. It was very big back in the day. A lot of cheaters now, but it's fine. But I remember a friend of mine hopped on. He was like, yeah, I need to let my GPU cool down because I'm like running NiceHash on it. And me and my buddy asked, like, what are you talking about? And he said, yeah, I make like $40 a day just leaving my thing on, running this. We said, no, you don't. Like, don't. Come on. That's not real. And then turns out it was.
What was he mining?
He was just using NiceHash, right? So at the time, it's just,
optimal,
it just does whatever you want, or not whatever you want, whatever it wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we started doing that too, but he and I have always been kind of business people and went and said, well, instead of running our own things, let's find out if people want us to manage it for them. And we tried that, but it's 2017. It's well past mining days, right? Like, that's over. But that was our first foray into crypto, and then we found NFTs with MLB Champions, if anyone's been around for those days. That was the first sports, like, officially licensed NFT. And we were huge users of that back then. We still have all of it in case it, like, fingers crossed, is there or something. It's easy to be diamond hands when it's like not, when no one wants it. It's like super easy to be diamond hands. Yeah. And then, I don't know. After that, it was worked at Amazon for a while, worked at OpenSea after that, and then now I'm here at Flowty.
Oh, interesting. I often forget that you worked at OpenSea. So
yeah, not for long. Just during the worst summer, best summer actually of OpenSea's existence.
Best for them,
worst
for
for
you.
me. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so it's interesting to hear both of your stories because Loaf, you're saying you come from this kind of software engineering background, came into crypto. Kind of hearing something similar from you as well, Austin. Like, it's interesting to hear that you both ended up on Flow, and I think just to kind of educate the people here, people who are watching, what is, if there is a short version of this, what is the Flow blockchain? Why is it different than Ethereum or Ether? Maybe go to Austin with that.
Yeah, when you think about what is the difference between different blockchains, Flow is an L1, just to start. You've got like lots of different blockchains out there. We hear L2s all the time, but you've got like Solana's an L1 also. But I think one of the big differences for me was actually something that French Loaf mentioned, which is was alluding to, that you can like write custom things to talk to Flow. You don't have to deploy a whole other contract to go and do something like slightly different than what was originally intended. You could just go and write this custom transaction and have it be done for you. So I remember back when I was learning EVM, learning Solidity, I said like, well, all I want to do is just run a script to talk to this thing. And it turns out you just can't do that. Mm-hmm. You could write a contract to deploy itself and run itself as a script, but God, is that expensive. And there's one of the huge differentiators on Flow is that you can actually just chain things together ad hoc if you want to. And you really can't do that on EVMs.
Interesting. Now, does that have something to do with my understanding? There's a difference between, object-oriented and resource-oriented? Forgive me, I'm like LARPing as a dev.
Cadence is resource-oriented, but I don't even think that that's really necessarily the case. Like, you could be resource-oriented and still do the EVM model, right? And say like, your only entry point to calling something is that there's a method on the contract. And then if it's not there, sorry, you can't do that. It's really just when Dieter and Bastian and folks on the Flow team were designing what Flow should be, they said that was important. That it was important to easily be able to chain things together, compose things, as I think people like to say nowadays.
Well, and maybe that actually hints at something that I remember learning about Flow is that from its inception, it was meant to be able to be used by millions, billions of users at some point. Like, do you see there being a difference there as far as Flow, the ceiling that Flow can operate at versus something like EVM?
Ooh. You want to take that?
Go for it, Loaf.
You're building a mainstream application.
Yeah, right. So if we look at the new Ethereum roadmap, right, like they've kind of tapped out of being like that, like primary scalable architecture, right? And so you have this onslaught of roll up after roll up after roll up and L2s and like this ecosystem that can facilitate the same level of scale, but it also adds a lot of complexity. And like one of the conversations we were just having yesterday is it like delays things like finality and it makes building significantly more complex. And like you don't have that problem on Flow just because of like the way it was designed. And the separation of concerns. There was actually a talk given at this house yesterday that I wish we could just like pull up the slides to and flip through.
Download it into everyone's
brains.
Yeah.
Just about like modular architecture on the blockchain and like the differences between like ETH mainnet, right, and the way Flow is designed allow for, I don't want to say greater scale, but like different types of scaling.
Yeah.
So then I guess that kind of begs the question, right? If people are thinking, you know, there's Arbitrum, there, like I said, there's a bunch of rollups and layer 2s. Maybe you could speak towards why I don't know, you didn't make the decision that Doodles built on Flow, but like L2s versus Flow, right? For a rudimentary breakdown, what would you say?
I mean, it just depends, right? Like one of the things I talk about a lot is like there is like every chain has its place, right? And there is no reason to be a chain maxi. There's no reason to be an ETH mainnet maxi or Flow maxi or any of that. And like each chain has something it's really good at. And like interoperability is the like logical next step, which is one of the reasons we're so excited about the EVM on Flow, right? Where it's like all of a sudden the world opens up significantly more, and it's like Flow is my starting place, and I can branch out into the world. But like OP Stack, Arbitrum, etc., like they all have their place, and they also have massive liquidity pools, right? So like there's obvious value there. There's like the concept of super chain. There's I forget Arbitrum's version of that, orbit chains.
Orbits, yeah.
Yep. And so like the ecosystem all makes sense, but like once again, like coming back to the point of finality, which we like
huge one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't touch on that one. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, hit that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the big things, if you were here yesterday, Axelar came by and was talking about what does it mean to bridge things between chains, and what are the challenges involved there. Flow is by far the best at, I mean, we could argue many things, but one like very specific and provable thing, which is finality. If you ever like deposited Ethereum into Coinbase, you'll probably see it say waiting for X number of confirmations, right? Until the credits to you, you have to wait for 15 minutes or whatever. And the reason for that is it's possible for what happened to have turned out to not have happened in the first place. Like with some degree of certainty, Ethereum can reorg itself, and maybe what happened changes. It doesn't happen often, but it's possible. And that finality is kind of the metric that's used. It's like 15 minutes, I think, for Ethereum, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Flows is 15 seconds. And for reference, Solana's 30 seconds. So, you know, everyone's talking like how well Solana does. It's very good at soft finality, which is, I think, 300 or 500 milliseconds. True finality on Solana's 30 seconds versus Flow's 15. And there's a lot of really important things that require finality before you can like move on to the next step. If you're bridging an NFT, for instance, and you don't wait for finality on the other side, what if it reorgs and now you actually still have it on the other chain, and now you have it twice, and you can like try to mess with it in some way or do things with it.
Yeah, or another example of that, like in the Doodles world, is like when I'm equipping my Doodle, right? And I'm putting on a new pair of pants and my cowboy hat and all this other stuff. I can then go list my Doodle eventually, right? Where I can sell it all fitted out and all the other stuff. If we don't wait for finality, right? Like if we don't wait to make sure everything is perfectly in order before we let that list happen, you could go in and you could change everything really quick and and then like you could just buy like a naked doodle with a fanny pack.
Well, and the thing about that's actually why the Doodles 2 and the flow-based Doodles NFT isn't on Flowty yet. It's because we have to solve that on the protocol level. Because on Cadence, you could just write a custom transaction to do all of that in one go. You could list it and in the same transaction unequip everything, and it would look fine. So the protocol itself has to know.
It's too good at its own job.
Yeah. Like, well, it's more like, anything good or anything like any new technology can be good or bad, right? Internet's been used for good and bad things. Cadence can have good and bad transactions too. But what's really nice is Cadence is a very flexible and powerful language. So it's actually quite easy just to add a safeguard that says Doodles NFT had this attribute when it was listed. Is it still there on the other side when it's bought? And then you're okay.
I think that this is something I want to hear, because I think with Cadence, right, you can, like you said, have complex transactions occur simultaneously, which is not something that at least as far as I'm aware, the EVM can do. You wrote I don't even know, a feature, something. What would you call account linking? I just want to make sure I'm calling it the right thing.
Account linking it's a smart contract. It's called hybrid custody. So like we see the and we were talking about this the other day. Account linking is used in two different contexts, and it's confusing because there is a literal feature on Cadence called account linking where you can link one account to another. Basically means it's like sudo access on your computer, administrator access on a Windows, right? It's like I can do anything I want on this thing. My first account can do anything it wants on the second account.
Like in essence, like on ETH, like delegation.
Yeah. Well, delegation, but more powerful than that.
Because with delegation, you could essentially verify, like for a Discord role. But with account linking, actually, before I even explain it, I want you to explain account linking, because it's an incredibly powerful thing.
So that's the first version of account linking. That's like the feature itself on Cadence. But that in and of itself is not good enough. It's really powerful, but what app is ever going to say, yeah, you can have sudo access to my like managed account, and hopefully we can handle all the edge cases to that, right? I don't see a world where anyone would do that. The risks are just too high. So the hybrid custody contract, also called account linking, because hybrid custody is a scary term and I think less understood.
Fair. Sure.
Because in apps, like, you link your bank account to Mint, so people know or understand what that term means. So the technical term for account linking is the sudo access, and the one that people probably think of is what I wrote. So what it does is you can think of it like gatekeeping on top of that. So on the case of Dapper Wallet allowing themselves to be child accounts, that's what we call them, you can't access tokens on the Dapper Wallet account. You can only access NFT collections. And to go further, you can only access the NFT collections that you specify can be accessed. So if I only want to share my Top Shot collection, I can do that. I can protect my Doodles collection and only share out my Top Shot collection, and that's fine. So you think about like when you install an app on your phone and it says, this calculator app wants access to your contacts. You say, no, I don't think that's going to happen, and just don't give it to it, and it can't. So it's like a similar model to that is what we went for. And without something like that, the risks are just too great for apps to want to leverage something like that. They need control and safety to know that nobody's going to gain access to something they shouldn't have.
Well, and I think this may sound like we're just talking about something that is like, oh, what is it? Why would you need something like this? But I in my own recent experience, right, I started interacting with some games and different D apps on EVM that would spin me up a Magic Wallet or a Dynamic Wallet or whatever. And before I knew it, I have all of these ETH wallets. And I either have to transfer all those NFTs to my main wallet if I want to use them, which obviously we know, super high gas costs. Like it just felt untenable. Like especially as the decentralized app ecosystem grows, and I get more and more of these wallets. Like it felt like to me I was heading back towards Apple Keychain, where I had 1 million accounts, 1 million passwords, and I can't actually use all of the assets because the gas would be too cumbersome.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like on the Doodle side, we actually are doing both versions, right? Where it's like,
you are.
Where it's like, so when someone signs up to the studio now, right? You're building your Doodle, and then you go to say you're done, and we're like, great, if you're done, let's do a username and an email and get you an account. And you come in and you get an account, but what's happening in the background there, right, is we're creating you a magic wallet. We're using the hybrid custody contract, so we're giving ourselves limited access to do things there, right? So we're then able to effectively initialize collections on your behalf so that as our ecosystem grows, you don't have to sign a transaction whenever we want to add like a new type of collectible. We're able to more effectively manage those things for you or run transactions for you in the background there, right? So it's a very Web2 experience. Like if you come in and you only have that wallet, when you click save your Doodle, you don't sign a transaction. We do that on your behalf in the background, so it feels 100% Web2. And then the other version of account linking, which is confusing, is we then give you the ability to set that wallet currently only as a child, right? Because we're assuming most people don't want the wallet that we have access to do everything on to be the parent
wallet.
Sure. Granted, there are users who are interested in that workflow, so we're working on expanding that functionality. But it allows us to create these really seamless user experiences, so that as we think of Flow internally, we call it our play layer, right? Where it's like, if I want to play games, I don't want to sign a transaction every time I want to do blah. I don't want to I don't want to interact with the blockchain when I'm playing, right? But I want it all to be on chain so that it's verifiable. I can read data from that afterwards, and I can ideally, unless someone is very talented, avoid people cheating, and have that all be verifiable fun that I had.
From like a practical perspective, I imagine like as a user, so I'm in the studio or I'm in any other Flow app, Zeeds, Flowvatar, anything like that, and I can play around in that ecosystem, not signing any transactions. It's frictionless, which is fun, right? Which is kind of paramount. But then if I have another wallet that's set as a parent wallet, I can go to a marketplace and transact with those NFTs.
Yep.
That's correct. And actually goes a little bit further than that too, which is that things can exist where they should. Your Top Shot moment should be in your Dapper wallet, right? You get Top Shot score for it. You can participate in challenges for it. You can play Fast Break with it. Like that's where they're supposed to be. You don't have to keep them there, but that's the app it came from. But previously, before something like that, you might not have access to cooler products that are not on the Dapper Wallet ecosystem for whatever reason, like regulatory reasons in some cases. So if you can gain access to something without even having to move it, you can participate in something without having to do this if I move it and this thing doesn't sell, or I can't take the loan out I want to take or whatever, I lose out on my Top Shot score. Now I don't want to do that. Or that extra step to even move it, and it's better now, but it used to be like a 24-hour waiting period to get your Top Shot moment withdrawn and stuff like that. All those are huge barriers that mean a user will never try that. But if instead you just sign into a new wallet and say, oh, now I have all these new things that I couldn't try before, it also helps guide users down this progressive path to a deeper understanding of what it is even that they're talking to and interacting with, and what is the wide open Wild West of Web3 in general.
Yeah, so I kind of want to change gears a little bit. I think we've covered, account linking, hybrid custody, and all that stuff pretty well. But you're talking about, building in cadence. And I'm not sure, if you could shed any light on, how the Flow dev ecosystem works. To my understanding, a lot of, the partnerships with Flow are these bigger brands, Disney with Pinnacle, all the sports organizations, and they kind of work in their independent areas. They just happen to be, using Flow. Is there a collective effort kind of going on, with the Ethereum Foundation? Do you guys interact with each other a lot, or?
Well, we hadn't met until ETH Denver here, but there are working groups on Flow. You'll probably see my opinions out there a lot on GitHub and on those working groups. But we need as many people who are interested in doing that. You don't even have to talk when you're in those kinds of groups, but you get to hear from Deep when he stops by in them, and you get to hear his input on it. You get to hear from protocol engineers who are actually working on the features that are necessary. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of working groups. I don't know. There's probably a recording that we could dig up of Chirag talking about all the different. Here are the new working groups and what the Flow Foundation wants and how it wants to engage with people who have their unique skills to contribute, because everyone's a little bit different, right? I'm not a tokenomics guy. Like, that's not something that I am like an expert in. But if it's about standards, how is an application going to use the language? I feel like I have a pretty good eye for that.
I do want to kind of key in on this because you said the Ethereum Foundation, you said the Flow Foundation.
Yeah.
And I know that for a long time, Flow is kind of synonymous with Dapper. You mentioned Dapper Wallet, but I'm understanding that maybe that's a little bit different now. Now there's this Flow Foundation. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, I mean, the Flow Foundation, I don't know the exact date that they split, but Dapper and Flow are separate organizations, I think formally now. I mean, for a long time, they would say that they are and have been separate, but it's different from like a legal perspective or from like formally our teams have split and they have their own roadmaps, right? Like Dapper does not tell Flow this is what they need to do. Flow goes and does what it thinks that it needs to do. But I think a big part of that is them formalizing these working groups, which is kind of how like a lot of foundations work, right? They identify key things that they want input on and try to engage with people to come in and do that kind of work. They're trying to get more contributors in general. I think in the past, you've got people like me who are more core contract contributors, but not protocol contributors, which is, I don't know, like on-chain randomness, someone has to implement that, right? Someone has to actually come in and make the changes to the protocol necessary to enable a feature like that. And so there's just a lot of effort to try to do that. And when you have this feeling that, this is just Dapper's chain, it's just a lot harder to, I think, make that happen. So I think it's a great change that they've gone down. 100%. I don't know if you've got.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have anything to add on that specifically, but I think like when you also speak to like the developer ecosystem, right? I think it's also important to like Austin was saying, there's like so many people working on different parts, and like now that everything is becoming significantly more open, there's so much more to do, right? Where it's like my passion right now on the Flow side is like I want to build the easiest experience to onboard people to actually build not contracts, but like apps on top of contracts on Flow. So it's like that's why we did Flu and Flukes, where it's like the goal is like I don't want people to have to see Cadence, not because it's not cool, but like they should be able to just seamlessly interact with the chain and not have to think about it. They should have like strong typing. They should have like easy plain names to interact with instead of like complex contract addresses, where it's like it's like there's so many moving pieces where it's like the things Austin and I are focused on are 100% different, but at the same time, like pushing forward the same end desire of making it a very easy ecosystem to onboard into.
Well, no, that's really cool to hear. And maybe that actually parlays into our next kind of, part that we want to kind of get into is we've talked about how the studio uses Flow, how it uses account linking, how it uses all this stuff. Like, Loaf, how do you conceptualize Flow? We've heard you say it's the play layer. What does that mean in practice? And like, what does it mean now? And maybe where's it going in the future?
Yeah. Right. So we view it in like 3 layers, right? So we have attract, right? So all of our social media content, all of our animation, all of our merchandise, all of the like music, all of that stuff is the attract layer where we pull in eyeballs and get people to become brand aware. The play layer, right? So they now funnel directly into the play layer, which is Flow for us, where they can come and they can dress up their doodle. We're going to be working through things for people to do with their doodles on Flow. Lots of things I'm not allowed to talk about.
I'll just turn off the recording for a second.
Right, there's a lot of really exciting things that we plan on building out on Flow, where it's meant to be like the reason every user, even old users of the studio, got that magic wallet was so that we can leverage that wallet for that play, and we can create that seamless experience for them as long as they want it to be, until they're like, nope, let me link this to my like more secure wallet and I'll sign the transactions when things are going on. Mm-hmm. Or I actually hate that experience now, let me unlink it and go back to to like not having to sign transactions.
Which is not fun. I didn't
like right, but it's that's the place where we expect people to do social interaction and like true like peer-to-peer engagement. And below that we have our transact layer, which is like, where do I bring this stuff to to sell it? Where do I monetize the things that I'm doing in the studio? And how does that fuel the ecosystem as a whole, right? Because like up until this point, we've released many different types of wearables, and I can put them on my Doodle. And I mean, the hollow worms that sit on your hand, like, got a floor price of, I think, at $1,800 the other week.
Hey, we'll see how the Ethies do.
Yeah,
Not that
yeah.
I have a lot of them.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Well,
And what are those?
Oh, it's the. Oh, you know that.
what are
If you're
those?
wondering what that.
Right, and so one of the reasons we're really excited about like EVM compatibility on Flow is that like I should be able to go and sell my stuff on Flow, and I should be able to like have that be a significantly more embedded experience. But I might also be more of a like until I understand like the true omni-chain philosophy, I might be more of an ETH maxi. I might just take my wearables and sell them on an EVM chain. I might want to bring them to
Pause.
yeah.
So you said there's a potential future where you can take your wearables and sell them on EVM marketplaces?
Yes. So the individual who's responsible for building that bridge is actively in this building.
Where's Gio?
Yeah. But there's a lot of really cool features that we're not talking about, right? It's not just that I can deploy Solidity contracts using EVM Flow, which is super cool. We saw a demo of it yesterday, like on PreviewNet, which launched yesterday. And like really, really cool stuff. But there's like essentially a native bridge between EVM and Flow that allows me to move my assets around in the same manner that I would on any other bridge.
Wow, that's really cool.
So now, just because I'm kind of curious, like I was saying, like how the ETH developers kind of, there's a little bit of, like a generalized roadmap, and they've been, doing this for years and years. And I feel like allowing people to deploy EVM onto Flow, that would obviously let people kind of just come over, not having to learn a new language, right? How do you guys foresee that? Like, do you see a pain point right now of like trying to attract more talent to the chain right now? Or
People don't want to have to go and like, when there's a tool out there that's really easy to use, even if it's not a perfect fit for what you want, if it saves you 90% of the time that it takes to do it, like you're probably going to take that option. This EVM on Flow work is a couple things, but one of the big ones is just it's like a stepping stone. Say like you can get some of the benefits that Flow's architecture has. Things like finality will still apply on the Flow EVM. Like even though it's not cadence, you would still get those types of benefits. I think like MEV resistance is a lot stronger on Flow, I think too. I don't think we talked about that. No, but yeah, which maybe is good or bad. Some people like
Jared,
that. Some
Jared's
people don't.
going to be out of business?
Maybe
Jared from Subway?
could very well.
for the homies?
The med monster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got this like so much tooling that's been developed over many years for Solidity, right? All these open Zeppelin contracts and all of these like really, really long, like thoughtful discussion about how should something be structured, how do we optimize it, to the point that everyone's really familiar with it. When we did a lot of the metadata standards for NFTs on Flow, it was well, we're going to have to reference OpenSea's stocks also because that's what people know and they're familiar with. And this is in a little bit like a kind of the same light. It's this, I don't want to have to learn an entire new language just to go and deploy like a basic NFT to play around with what it means to be a Web3 developer. And so if I can just take Open Zeppelin contracts and deploy it on Flow, that's great. If I want to then bridge it to Cadence, like French Love here is saying, and now extend the language and do more with it I couldn't do before, awesome. But you shouldn't have to do it.
Yeah. But granted, there are lots of reasons to do it. We were just talking earlier about like true on-chain randomness is a great example there, right? Where it's like to do on-chain randomness on EVM, I have to jump through all these hoops. I have to write all this code. I have to interface normally with Link. And it's like
pay for it too.
Yeah. Certainly have to pay for it. To have a big treasure trove of Link to that you just pay for that for all of the users to ensure that everything is provably fair. You don't have to do that on Flow, right? And so like you'll be able to tap into those parts of Flow that just make things significantly easier, which I think is another like huge benefit.
And we were talking about earlier that one of the other questions, maybe it's on you two's minds as well, is going to be, okay, well, cool, I can deploy this EVM contract on Flow, but like, why would I choose Flow's EVM over like another EVM, right? Mm-hmm. And things like on-chain randomness are the answer to that kind of thing. Like finality is too, but that's not going to apply to most people, right? But if I'm making an NFT and I want to make sure it's a fair mint, I could go and read like a 3-page doc for VRF for Chainlink, or hopefully Flow adds their VRF doc and it's a 1-line, and you're done, and that's it. And my goal is that I'm not a protocol dev, so I don't know. I'll promise that they should do it, but I'm not in charge of them in any way. But I would hope to see that they would add that functionality to their EVM and say, like, this is why you should use the Flow EVM, because this previously really difficult to solve problem is just snap of a finger here, and you don't have to worry about it. That like those are the kinds of things that I like think they're going to start diving into more as this starts to. I think we're a couple months away from it being launched, so there's still time or like coordination for them to do those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think, what is Crescendo slated for summer 2024, maybe?
I think it happens when it happens.
Yeah, it happens when it's ready.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. But
like I know it, like the goal was April, May, June, August, you know.
Soon, TM.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we know that. We know that all too well.
But like, it shouldn't be rushed, right? There's like so much happening and so much going on at once that, you know, it takes the time it takes.
Yeah, and it is a massive breaking change, right? And that's like the other important thing to call out. Like, while we talk about all the cool parts, like Austin and Javi on our side are over here like meticulously rewriting contracts, and like making sure that everything's going to be compatible. So like there is all of the behind the work scenes for both of our companies and everyone else, which is like, I just think that's always important to acknowledge. Like, we get to talk about the cool stuff all the time, but we don't talk about the like tireless hours of like just trying to figure out how the hell it works behind
it is a different language. It feels very different. Cadence 1.0 Crescendo than the current version does. But you know, lots of us were in a lot of those working groups to try to help steer like how we think that should go. So fingers crossed that we identified all the stuff that, you know, we think is a hurdle or a road bump.
Nice. Before we go to the audience questions, I did want to kind of ask one wrap-up questions, right? With Cadence coming up, and, you know, Austin, you're with Flowty Marketplace. Mm-hmm. Loaf, you're with Doodles, which Doodles, you know, they doodle. What would you two be most excited about, either for Flow in general, like kind of pie in the sky, like, oh, it'd be so cool if someone can do this, and it'd be amazing.
Your moonshot.
You know, what are you most excited about coming up in the future for Flow? Or Doodles, or both?
You know, I'm excited to have time back after all of this to actually experiment with the things that I already know what I want to do, but I don't have the time to go do it. Like one of them, there's actually like a repo under my GitHub alias that's this like Bjarda, one of the like the CTO of the Fine team, who wrote all the Doodles Flow work. Yep. He's always talked about an if this then that state machine on Flow. And we have a prototype for that, but where do you find the time to go and finish those kinds of new products when you're, you know, trying to like set the ecosystem up for these giant changes, prepare for them, make sure that, you know, it's not just our contracts. We're reaching out to other collections and making sure that they're like ready to go. Do you even know this is happening? Like, do you know how you're going to upgrade it? Do you have your keys still? I hope you do, because if you don't, you know, so really it's excitement of like a, you know, we're unlocked to go and do some of the things we've always wanted to do. And like a good example of this kind of transaction schedule is what I'm calling it, is this like, I want to DCA into Flow using increment. So what I want to do is I want to buy $10 worth of Flow, and I want it to say, tomorrow, do it again. And it should all happen on chain. Everyone should be like, anyone should be able to run that for me. And you can do a lot of really, really, really weird stuff with that kind of power, just in general.
For sure.
Yeah, and on my side, I'm just excited to, like, I think one of the things we have not done the best at Doodles is we never really answered the question of why Flow, right?
Flow?
And like that seeded a lot of confusion. And what I'm really excited about with the new studio and the Crescendo update is like we're going to be able to really showcase why Flow and the like long-term benefits of building on Flow to the community, and how that not just like how that like builds out the play layer, but how that actually like also encourages and brings more color to our EVM layers, which is like where our OGs are, and like a absolutely crucial part of everything that we do. And so it's like, how do we tie that all together? Once again, lots of stuff I'm not allowed to talk about, but it, like very, very excited about like really painting an incredibly clear picture this year of why.
When Doodles avatars in 6551 backpacks. I'm just saying. Well, just want to thank both of you guys so much for sitting down with us and talking Flow and talking Doodles. I mean, I feel like my brain's a little bit cooked.
Yeah, no, and I mean just in general,
in
like
a good way.
Yeah, like big shout out to the Flow Foundation that brought us on as Flow Scholars. That was a really great opportunity, and just to bring like minds together. I think like the sort of we might not be stratified by prices right now, and we're kind of thinking with a more open mind. And I think being able to work together and communicate, right, and connect, that's to me what is obviously like technology is great that we can use it as a supplement, but like we do need to make sure that we do a vibe check here now and again. And I also want to shout out to FOMO. He helped executive produce this, so big one love to FOMO. And shout out to NRN, that's like our content crew, Crier, Yaba, and everybody that came through. Big shout out to you guys. I mean, I love what you guys are doing at Doodles. I love what you guys are doing at Flowty. I think that it's important that you guys are focusing on, making sure we can custody our assets if we want, even, like if you guys think that Flow is a good spot, which I love being early to something. And when it's just like,
we're so early.
Yeah.
They don't realize that. They think that, Flow and Dapper is like, oh, that's, old chain. It's like, no. We are early. And they'll get it. They'll get it eventually.
But yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming through.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, awesome. All right, that's a wrap.